is this concept of you are spirit, you have a body. Just as opposed to what I was taught, which was you have a soul or you have a spirit. This is you are a spirit. You are a spirit and you have a body. And the idea is that you are the witness. See, this is the Vedic or yogic version of reincarnation. Reincarnation, sometimes in our culture we just, first of all, we get sort of either really airy into it, like, yeah, I want to become a blue jay in my next life, or I want to become a swan. Or we do the opposite, we're like, this is crazy, reincarnation. I can never believe in reincarnation. But the idea is very simple, is that we are always in the process of reincarnating. Taking on new carne, like taking on new flesh. We're in the process of it constantly. So the idea is that we are spirit, and we have this flesh, and this flesh is always in a state of flux. It's always moving, it's always changing at every moment. For example, I'm not a stretched out version of my 5-year-old body. Right? This isn't the same body at all. Right down to the molecule, everything has been different. But I was there witnessing it. I witnessed that body. I witnessed that hair. I witnessed that hand. But my hand actually is a completely different hand, right down to the molecule. So who is that person that was there? That's the real person. That's the jiva. That's the atma. When the yogis talk about atma jnana, to understand the atma as the goal of yoga, right? Because when you enter into yoga world, you have to look at yoga as a sort of a map, like I'm driving from New York to LA, and so that way you can look at the overview of the map. If you don't go into it like that, you somehow can get like lost in the minutia of just driving around, lost in the city. And therefore you might even get to Scranton and think, yes, I'm here. Scranton is a wonderful place. But if your actual goal is to get to another side of the country, Scranton's not there. Does that make sense? So our idea is going into a yoga practice is first understanding the map and then understanding where we want to go. So you'll hear about this idea, Atma Jnana, or knowledge of the self. So what is the self? It's been confused because we tend to think it was the body, and there's a strong identification with the body. And the yogis will use this analogy, and they'll say that it's like adding up a long list of numbers. If you make one wrong, simple mathematical error. Suppose I have 100 numbers and I add 1 plus 1 equals 3. From there on, all the other calculations will be wrong, even if they're right. Even if they're right, it'll all be wrong. In the same sense, if I'm walking around this world, convinced I'm a material body, and I'm running around to trying to fulfill the whims of this body and mind, and neglecting what I actually am, the spirit, I am destined to be empty and feel always hungry. And this is the state of the conditioned jiva, the jiva who's conditioned by the material world. And then we end up the sad materialist. So the yogi is one who's convinced or is in the process of understanding I'm actually something more than the body. This body is just to say I'm merely human, because people say that all the time. Hey, I'm just a human. Hey, we're just a human. Right? Or they'll say, hey, we're just an animal, man. We're just an animal. That's actually a limitation. If you say you're just an animal, then you're scripted to that. If you say you're just a human, you're scripted to that. According to the yogis, we're not. According to the yogis, I'm not Italian. I'm not a New Yorker. We're not black or white. We're not some pigment or some flesh. We're not even our subtle body, which is our manas, our mind, our buddhi, or our intelligence, or our ahamkara, our ego. We're none of these 8 elements. We're a spirit soul that's actually transcendental to them. So the desire to find ourself underneath the ever-changing body, this is the beginning to understand reincarnation. The next part comes in when you understand, well, what I am consuming is creating me. It's creating my new body. And when do I get a new body? I get it instantly, right? People even say this. I've heard someone say this the other day. Every time I eat bread, I get puffy, right? That is creating a body right there. You are reincarnating in one sense right there. But we see it after a greater period of time. We see it after 10 years. How people, wow, what happened to her? Or what happened to him? Right? Or wow, look at her, look at him. What happened? People change radically. Sometimes you don't even recognize them. You get on Facebook and someone posts a picture of me when I was in high school, or someone posts a picture of them in high school, and you see a picture of us now, we're like, what happened to us? Right? So we see the body in flux. So the question is, where are we, what are we creating, what are we consuming that's creating this body? And then the yogis take it one step further. They say you're also creating a new consciousness. And that new consciousness stays with you as well. And a matter of fact, we are creating our body when for our next birth, when our jiva leaves. So we just extend that logic. Just in the same way we've been creating bodies from boyhood or childhood to youth, to teens, right, to middle age, to old age. In the same way we witness these bodies change, at the time of death, our consciousness has created another gross body to enter into. Depending on our desires and our choices, we get a body suitable for that. So it's extending that understanding of always changing bodies in this life into this idea of the jiva, or the spirit, is actually an eternal being. And it's just going up and down and up and down and up and down, and forever morphing into different creations depending on our choices. And that's why it's a big thing with yogis, is our yamas and niyamas, which is a whole other conversation, is our yamas and niyamas are guardrails for us to make better choices, because we don't want to be myopic or short-sighted. We want to understand, like, our choices are actually creating us, and they're creating us to either ascend or descend in this life and the next. I got a million of these.